Tremendous evidence right now as to how unfairly treated I was. President Obama and Biden spied on my campaign. It's never happened in history. They are trying to steal the election, just like they did it last time with spying, and we caught them, and that included President Obama.
But there's a way to do this properly. What Democrats should do is they can respond to it and then pivot to the fact that Donald Trump is overseeing a horrific economy, skyrocketing prices, 17 million people about to lose health care. Every year the cost is rising, and Donald Trump is talking about the former president, whom he's been jealous of for at least 10 years, when, if you remember, Barack Obama roasted him during the dinner, and he's been jealous of him since.
Welcome back to Stateline Media. Let's dive right in. Donald Trump is acting like a spoiled kid who doesn't get his way, so he grabs his toys and storms off. The problem is, his toy is the United States government. And when his ego gets bruised, usually because Barack Obama still exists and is still better at basically everything than him, Trump decides to take something away from the rest of us. One day it's SNAP benefits, another day it's health care. At this rate, don't be shocked if he wakes up and says, "You know what, I'm just not a fan of free speech anymore." And that's that. This is who Donald Trump is.
On the afternoon of July 3rd, and there will also be no flights in the afternoon on July 4th. Officials say it's necessary to allow for aerial rehearsals, performances, and July 4th fireworks. During the airspace restrictions, travelers will have access to the terminal concessions and parking. Passengers are also being warned that there could be changes to flight status during events like the Great American State Fair and the Freedom 250 Grand Prix.
And his latest tantrum, his latest "nobody likes me" and my big party flopped meltdown, involves something almost unbelievable. He's shutting down an airport. Yes, you heard that right. Donald Trump is shutting down an airport. That's the level of chaos we're dealing with.
Even as the Supreme Court today effectively told Trump he has to pay E. Jean Carroll for sexually abusing her. Even as the Supreme Court today told Trump to back off trying to mess with people voting by mail. Even as the Supreme Court today restricted the government, the police, from grabbing your cell phone data with no warrant and no probable cause just because of where you physically were when you had your phone on you. Even as the court today told Trump to back off trying to fire Lisa Cook from the Fed Board of Governors.
And it's happening right after he got hit with a brutal string of losses today, on top of a brand new approval rating that should terrify him, one that Rachel Maddow already broke down. But before we get into the airport shutdown, let's talk about the losses. Loss after loss after loss for Donald Trump. Even the Supreme Court, which handed him nearly everything he asked for, still didn't give him total victory. And that almost is eating him alive.
Trump is sending a message directly to Alito and Thomas. Retire on your own terms now while I can protect your legacy, or risk what Ginsburg risked. And that's not subtle. That's a public negotiation with sitting justices through a cable news interview. The uncomfortable truth is this: the ideological balance of the court for the next 30 years is being discussed in terms of midterm election calendars and Senate math. That's not a bug in the system. It's been the system since 2016.
Trump wants the Supreme Court to be just like the Republican Party, fully owned, fully obedient. But it's not quite there yet. I know that's a hard thing to say given how compromised this court already is, but it's exactly why Trump is publicly begging Alito or Thomas to retire, so he can stack the bench with someone even more loyal to MAGA. Trump isn't satisfied because the losses keep piling up, and some of them are coming from inside his own party. Even Republicans can't spin their way out of defending him anymore. They couldn't defend his disastrous state fair of a celebration either.
Donald Trump is floating himself as the headline act for a concert celebrating America's 250th anniversary. Now, this is after a number of artists pulled out of that concert. North America correspondent Cayman Gok joins us now live from the White House. Cayman, can you tell us a bit more about this backlash?
Yeah, Emma, at least 5 of the 9 artists have pulled out so far. This event was billed as a big celebration of America's 250th birthday and, importantly, a non-partisan event. But these artists that have pulled out said they felt misled and felt that this event was about the president, not about America's Independence Day.
Here's the headline. Trump's America 250 celebration on July 4th is going to halt flights at Reagan National Airport. No departures are scheduled out of National on the 4th. Officials are also warning travelers to double-check their schedules around other 250th anniversary events happening across the city this summer. Reagan National is expected to pause flights for most of July 4th to make room for the flyovers and fireworks Trump wants as part of the country's 250th birthday celebration.
In and out of DCA on the 4th of July.
Yeah, so Reagan National will close for hours to clear airspace for President Trump's America's 250th celebrations.
You know, you guys, it's really interesting. When you talk to travelers here at the airport, a lot of them didn't know about this, and some of them actually booked flights for July 4th, July 3rd, and now they're going to their phone saying, wait, I'm going to have to make changes because of these restrictions. Now, we've learned that DCA will be closed, all shut down on July 4th at night and most of the day. And we also found out that this is not the only event that is going to impact air travelers over the summertime. And the travelers we talked to here at DCA tell me that they have mixed opinions about this.
According to the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority, no flights are scheduled to leave National after noon on July 4th. On top of that, there's also a flight gap for several hours during the early afternoon of July 3rd. The very last flight out of National on the 4th departs at 11:50 a.m., a Southwest flight headed to Orlando. Funny enough, that might be the flight I end up on since that's where I'm from. According to aviation analytics firm Cirium, July 4th will see only 146 departures and 114 arrivals at National. Compare that to the previous Saturday, June 27th, which had 340 departures and 340 arrivals. That's less than half the normal traffic. The FAA has confirmed it will run special traffic management procedures before, during, and after the event to keep things safe, and operations are expected to return to normal once it's all over. So basically, Trump, embarrassed by the weak turnout at his birthday party, has decided the answer is to blow more things up in the sky. Because apparently he hasn't caused enough explosions already. He wants everyone forced to pay attention. So this becomes yet another celebration centered entirely on him. Now look, I'm not anti-fireworks. Fireworks are fun. It's the 4th of July, we're going to see some in the sky no matter what. But the dogs, the cats, the people with sensory issues, the environmental toll, none of that seems to matter when Trump wants the greatest fireworks display in history, a phrase Caroline Leavitt actually used. And knowing this administration, a chunk of that toxic residue is probably going straight into the reflecting pool. At this point, we might end up growing some kind of swamp creature in there, something straight out of a B-movie, born from the chemical runoff of Trump's ego, but shutting down flights, disrupting travel for thousands of people just so Trump can stage the greatest fireworks show ever. That's not patriotism. That's desperation. He needs something, anything, to attach his name to. Because deep down, he doesn't feel good. He feels small, and it shows. Yes, there's a strange kind of poetic justice in watching a narcissist, a man who thrives only on praise from people who privately can't stand him, squirm under the weight of his own insecurity. It is embarrassing. Picture it. A sad little gathering of his most devoted followers and barely anyone else shows up. How humiliating that must be for Trump. And thankfully, Democrats aren't letting this moment slide. They're calling it out and rightfully poking fun at him. Our friends over at Midas Touch caught a couple of great moments on Capitol Hill. So, Congressman, what do you make of nobody showing up to Trump's 250th anniversary event on the National Mall? I mean, we all know he clears a room, right? Well, that's not exactly breaking news. Donald Trump is in the middle of the worst party-throwing streak in modern political history. And now his answer is another massive fireworks display, because he wants to force the public to watch him, hear him, and rearrange their entire schedules around his ego. This is a man who constantly complains about Trump derangement syndrome. But let's be honest about what that phrase really means. Trump claims it's liberals criticizing his terrible decisions. But the real Trump derangement syndrome is him forcing himself into every part of our lives, every single day. Nobody is asking for more Trump. Nobody wants more of his scams, more of his shouting, more of his late-night truth social meltdowns. We want him gone. We want him to stop taking from the American people. And that's exactly why Jon Stewart called him out on this. Our lives would genuinely be better without Donald Trump using the full weight of the federal government to force himself into our daily existence. all while enriching his own family beyond anything most of us could ever imagine. A president shutting down a major American airport just to throw himself a birthday party. That's exactly what's happening. Reagan National Airport is halting flights for most of July 4th. Also, Donald Trump can stage fireworks and flyovers for his so-called America 250 celebration. No departures afternoon. A flight gap stretching into the early afternoon of July 3rd, too. Real travelers, real families, real plans disrupted. All because Trump wants a spectacle with his name attached to it. Cirium's data backs this up. Only 146 departures and 114 arrivals scheduled for July 4th, compared to 340 and 340 the previous Saturday. That's less than half of normal air traffic wiped out for one man's ego. The FAA is scrambling to manage special traffic protocols just to pull this off safely. Caroline Leavitt is calling it the greatest fireworks display in history. But ask yourself, greatest for who? Not for the travelers stuck rebooking flights, not for the residents breathing in extra pollution, not for the dogs and cats terrified by non-stop explosions overhead. This isn't patriotism. It's desperation dressed up as celebration. Trump needs a win. He needs applause. He needs cameras pointed at him after a humiliating stretch of losses, low approval numbers, and a birthday event nobody showed up for. So he's manufacturing his own spotlight, even if it means grounding flights and inconveniencing thousands of Americans. That's the truth behind this story. Not a tribute to the country's 250th birthday, but a desperate attempt to mask one man's growing irrelevance. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more updates from State Line Media. Thanks for watching.